We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. These words, often attributed to Aristotle, hold a truth so deep that they can shape the direction of your entire life if you choose to live by them. In a world constantly chasing quick results, rapid hacks, and instant gratification, there's a hidden power in something very few talk about: forcing yourself to be consistent even when you don't feel like it. Most people wait for motivation. They wait to feel ready. But waiting to feel inspired is like waiting for the rain to stop before you plant your crops. The conditions will never be perfect. If you rely on how you feel, your life will be driven by emotions, not by direction. Consistency, on the other hand, is a quiet force that builds greatness. Not in a day, not in a week, but over time. When you force yourself to be consistent, everything begins to align. Your thoughts, your habits, your decisions, they begin to shape a life of purpose. There will always be days when you don't feel like doing the work, days when the excuses feel louder than your vision. That's when it matters most. That's the exact moment your future self is watching you. Will you show up anyway? Will you put in the reps even when you don't see results? Will you follow through when no one else is watching? Those moments define you, because consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about proving to yourself that your goals matter more than your mood. You don't have to take massive steps every day. You just have to take one small step repeatedly, one good decision, one focused hour, one disciplined action. Over time, these stack up, they compound. The book Atomic Habits reminds us that small changes done consistently don't just improve your life, they transform it. The beauty of forcing yourself to be consistent is that it builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Each day you show up, you say, I can count on me. That self-trust becomes confidence, that confidence becomes momentum. And soon the discipline you forced in the beginning becomes who you are. Your brain begins to rewire. Your identity begins to shift. You go from someone who wants change to someone who creates change. You stop asking, what if I fail, and start asking, what's next? You become a person of action, not just intention. That's the difference between a dream and a goal. Dreams are passive. Goals are backed by consistency. Look at any area of your life, your health, your relationships, your career. The results you're experiencing right now are a reflection of what you've been consistently doing over the past months or years. And if you want different results in the future, you don't need a new plan. You need consistent execution. The plan doesn't work unless you do. You'll be tempted to quit, to take a break, to say, I'll start fresh next week. That's where most people lose the game. They pause when they should press forward. But the ones who win, the ones who truly change, are the ones who keep going even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You won't always see the results right away. Some days it will feel like nothing's happening, but that's the nature of growth. It happens slowly, quietly, invisibly at first. Roots grow underground before the tree appears above the surface. Trust that your efforts are taking root. Keep watering your habits. Keep feeding your vision. Keep showing up, because when consistency becomes non-negotiable, everything else begins to fall into place. Opportunities start to find you. Your confidence grows. People begin to trust you, not because of what you say, but because of how you live. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself. And that trust is the foundation of a powerful life. The truth is, the life you want won't happen because of one huge decision. It will happen because of 1,000 small ones. Choices made daily, repeated relentlessly, driven by purpose, and upheld by discipline. So stop waiting for permission. Stop hoping for the right time. Force yourself to be consistent. Train your mind to show up, to do the work, to stay focused, even when it's inconvenient. Do it long enough, and your whole life will start to change. Not because you got lucky, but because you showed up again and again until everything fell into place. Motivation feels good, doesn't it? It's like a rush of energy that floods your system, telling you that you're ready, you're fired up, you're going to change your life. In those moments, it feels like anything is possible. And to be fair, a burst of motivation can be useful. It can get you started, help you take that first step. But if we rely on motivation alone, we are building our future on unstable ground. Because motivation is temporary. It fades. It's tied to mood, to circumstances, to how well things are going. It's unreliable. But consistency is solid. Consistency is stronger. It doesn't care if you're in the mood. It doesn't ask if you feel ready. It simply asks, will you show up today? That's why consistency is more powerful than any motivational high. It builds identity, and identity creates lasting transformation. Your life is not defined by what you do once in a while. It's shaped by what you do repeatedly. If you read a book once, it's inspiring. If you read daily, it becomes part of how you think. If you eat healthy for a week, you might feel better. But if you eat healthy every day, you change your body. If you work out once, it's just activity. But if you work out consistently, you change your lifestyle. And more than that, you begin to see yourself differently. You start to become the kind of person who follows through, the kind of person who lives in alignment with their values. This is how identity shifts. You don't just decide to change. You prove it to yourself over and over again through small, repeated actions. Every day you stay disciplined, you cast a vote for the type of person you want to become. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, that every action you take is a vote for the future version of yourself. One vote doesn't decide the outcome, but hundreds, even thousands of daily votes do. Over time, those actions form patterns. The patterns become habits. The habits become your lifestyle, and eventually, they shape who you are. It's important to realize that transformation is not a moment. It's a process. It's not one breakthrough that changes everything. It's not one day of extreme effort that shifts your future. Real transformation is built slowly, over time, brick by brick, choice by choice. You don't notice it at first. There are no fireworks. No one claps for you. But something powerful is happening beneath the surface. With every day you stay committed, especially when it's hard, you're reinforcing your identity. You're becoming the person you've been trying to become, not by talking about, but by living it. And that's the key difference. Motivation leads you to talk about change. Consistency proves it. It's not glamorous. There's no viral video for waking up early 5 days in a row. No applause for choosing discipline over distractions. But those are the moments that count the most because they add up, they stack, and eventually the compound effect kicks in. You start to feel the shift, not because you did something once, but because you kept showing up. That's when people start to notice. That's when the results begin to appear. That's when you realize you're no longer the person you used to be. You didn't just set a goal. You became the kind of person who lives that goal out every day. And here's what's even more powerful. Once consistency shapes your identity, everything gets easier. You don't have to push yourself as hard because your new habits become part of your rhythm. It's no longer a battle to make the right choice. It's just what you do now. That's when the real transformation sticks. That's when change becomes permanent. When you build your life on consistency, you build something durable, something weatherproof. It can stand against storms because it wasn't built in a single burst. It was built with time, patience, and repetition. You're not chasing motivation anymore. You've stepped into discipline. You've claimed responsibility. You've chosen to live in alignment with who you want to become. So don't worry if the motivation isn't there. Don't panic if the inspiration fades. Keep showing up, keep choosing the work, keep putting in the reps, because every time you do, you're shaping your future. You're reshaping your identity. You're building a version of yourself that no one can take away from you. That's the quiet magic of consistency. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. And when that happens, everything else begins to shift around you. Your confidence grows, your habits stick, your dreams start to feel possible, not because of one big leap, but because you had the strength to keep walking day after day without needing a spotlight to keep going. Discipline is not something you do when it's convenient. It's not a tool you reach for when the sun is shining, when your energy is high, or when your mood is just right. Discipline is what you lean on when everything in you wants to quit. It's the quiet force that tells you do it anyway, even when your mind is filled with reasons to walk away. And the truth is, discipline must be practiced daily, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because those moments when it's cold, when you're tired, when no one would blame you for stopping, those are the moments that matter the most. That's where growth begins. That's where character is carved. Not in the easy days, but in the hard ones. That's where your future self is watching, silently hoping you'll choose progress over comfort, that you'll show up even when every excuse sounds justified. Most people are conditioned to believe that success comes from rare, explosive effort, an intense day, a huge project, a wave of inspiration. But true growth doesn't work like that. Discipline isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's a decision you make over and over again until it becomes a part of who you are. And it rarely feels good in the moment. Waking up early, staying late, saying no to the distraction, going to the gym when your body says, stay in bed. That's not fun, but that's where the reward lives. It lives in the resistance. It lives in the refusal to break your own promise. You won't always feel like doing the right thing, and you're not supposed to. That's the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation is a spark. It's nice to have. It's exciting, but it fades. Discipline, on the other hand, is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. the more you choose to act in spite of how you feel, the more you reinforce to yourself that you are in control. Not your moods, not your distractions, not your excuses. Discipline is self-respect in motion. It's telling yourself that your goals matter, even when the world is pulling you in 100 directions. It's choosing effort over ease, choosing the future over the impulse of the moment. And it's never convenient. No one wakes up and says, today's the perfect day to make hard choices. But those who win, those who evolve, are the ones who train themselves to push forward even when the fire burns low. The gym isn't full of people who feel like working out every day. It's full of people who show up regardless. The writer doesn't always feel like sitting at the desk, but they sit anyway. The entrepreneur doesn't always feel like grinding through uncertainty, but they do it anyway, because they understand that discipline is the bridge between wanting and having, between dreaming and doing, between who you are and who you're capable of becoming. When you practice discipline daily, you take back your power. You stop being a slave to temporary feelings. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You become your own authority. And in doing that, you become dangerous. Not in a destructive way, but in a focused, unshakable way. You start to live with intention, with structure, with momentum. You stop drifting and start steering. And here's the secret most people don't tell you. Discipline isn't punishment. It's freedom. It's the freedom to wake up and know you're moving in the right direction. It's the freedom of knowing your progress doesn't depend on external conditions. It's the freedom of knowing that no matter what chaos surrounds you, you have one constant, your ability to show up. There's power in not relying on the weather of your emotions. There's strength in becoming someone who finishes what they start even when it's inconvenient, even when no one's clapping. Because those are the people who don't just wish for a result. And the more you practice discipline, the more trust you build with yourself. Trust that you'll do what needs to be done, even if it's uncomfortable. Trust that you can carry weight, face resistance, stay focused. That self-trust becomes your foundation. It becomes your anchor when things get hard, because deep down you know you're not someone who quits when it gets tough. You're someone who chooses consistency over chaos, responsibility over excuses, action over apathy. You don't need to feel like it, you just need to do it. That's the difference between people who wish and people who create. People who drift and people who rise. You'll never feel ready every day, but if you can train yourself to move anyway, to act with discipline instead of waiting for permission from your feelings, you'll find that everything you've been chasing begins to move toward you. And not because you got lucky, but because you became the kind of person who shows up, even on the days you didn't feel like it, especially on those days, because that's where the real transformation lives. Not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the quiet, unseen, disciplined choices that add up to a life of greatness. When you force yourself to be consistent, something powerful begins to shift, not just in your results, but in your inner world. What once felt chaotic starts to make sense. What once felt uncertain begins to reveal a pattern. Clarity emerges not because you stumbled into the perfect plan, but because you stayed in motion long enough for the path to reveal itself. Most people sit and wait for clarity. They think they need to understand everything before they take action. But clarity doesn't come first. Consistency does. When you force yourself to show up day in and day out, regardless of whether the plan is perfect or the results are immediate, the fog begins to lift. Imagine a person lost in the forest. They can't see the way out. But every step they take consistently in one direction gives them more perspective, more space, more information. Eventually, they see the edge of the woods. But if they stood still, waiting for the map to magically appear, they'd stay lost forever. Life is no different. The more consistently you move, the more clarity you gain. Patterns begin to form. You start to learn what works and what doesn't. Not by thinking, but by doing. Clarity is not a light switch, it's a sunrise. And it comes slowly through repetition, through process, through experience. You figure things out as you walk forward, but only if you're moving. And as clarity increases, confidence grows, not the shallow kind of confidence that comes from hype or praise, but the deep, grounded confidence that comes from earning it, from proving to yourself that you can do hard things, that you can stay steady in the storm. Confidence grows every time you follow through on your word, every time you keep a promise to yourself. And when you're consistent, you make more of those promises, and you keep them. It's in those quiet wins, the early mornings, the late nights, the small victories, that your self-belief is forged. And that belief isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. It just knows. It knows that you are no longer a prisoner to impulse or emotion. It knows that you have the strength to follow through. And that kind of inner certainty becomes your foundation for everything else in life. Confidence, when rooted in consistency, becomes unshakable because it wasn't built on compliments. It wasn't built on someone else's validation. It was built through your own repeated effort. You begin to carry yourself differently, speak differently, move through life with more certainty, not because you have all the answers, but because you've proven you can figure them out. And when clarity and confidence align, something incredible starts to happen. Results, real measurable change. You start to see evidence of your growth. You begin to feel stronger, think sharper, act more intentionally. People start to notice not just what you're doing, but who you're becoming. The results begin to stack, not because you worked harder on one random day, but because you worked consistently on many ordinary days. That's where real success lives, in the ordinary, repeated effort that most people overlook. You stop getting thrown off by setbacks because you understand that one bad day doesn't erase weeks of progress. You stop chasing hacks and shortcuts because you've seen the power of steady, disciplined work. You don't panic when the progress feels slow because you've learned that momentum builds over time. And you begin to trust the process because it's not a theory anymore, it's your reality. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once felt foreign becomes familiar. Your habits start to carry you forward, and your identity begins to reflect the person you were always meant to be. And it all begins with one simple choice: to be consistent even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. To force yourself forward even when the results aren't visible yet. Because you now know that the results will come. They always do for those who don't give up. You'll look back one day, not amazed by a single massive breakthrough, but by the hundreds of small, consistent actions that quietly changed everything. You'll realize that what you forced yourself to do in the beginning became second nature. You'll understand that the life you live is the result of the discipline you chose repeatedly, patiently, relentlessly. So if things feel unclear, you're unsure, overwhelmed, or lost, don't stop. Don't wait. Just stay consistent. Show up. Do the work. One day at a time. Because when you force yourself to be consistent, you set in motion a quiet alignment. Clarity rises, confidence roots deep, results begin to form, and before long, the life you once only imagined becomes the life you wake up to every single day, not by accident, not by chance, but by design, your design, built by the power of consistency.